All stories are dramatized recreations. Named locations are fictionalized. Any resemblance to real persons is coincidental.
Hi, I'm Chloe, a 36-year-old hairdresser from Nye. Sharing this is hard, but I need to process how my husband David's affair with a colleague shattered our 10-year marriage. It began when I found lipstick on his collar shade Dusty Rose, my signature color for clients over 40. He claimed overtime at the law firm, but the scent of bergamot and jasmine on his skin wasn't courtroom air. That Thursday, rain blurred our Brooklyn brownstone windows. I traced the droplets while he mumbled excuses. 3 days later, a credit card slid for champagne at the Velvet Hour Lounge. No anniversary, no promotion, just silk-lined booths where he'd whispered promises to her. The scissors trembled in my hand the next morning. Snip, snip, snip as Mrs. Gable's gray curls fell like dead petals. Each strand echoed, "You trusted. You believed. You were blind." The salon smelled of ammonia and burnt sugar chemical straighteners mixing with Evelyn's caramel latte. My fingers wrapped another foil around Mrs. Chen's streak of gray, the metallic crinkle too loud in the silence. Snip, snip, snip. David's voice still hung in the air from last night. It meant nothing, Chloe, as if our decade together could dissolve like hairspray in rain. Across the room, Javier's blow-dryer roared like a subway train. I envied that noise. Anything to drown out memory's loop, the champagne receipt, his gym bag hiding her lace camisole, bergamot clinging to our bedsheets. Mrs. Chen's reflection caught mine in the mirror. "You're quiet today." The shears froze mid-air. How explain that every highlight I painted felt like tracing cracks in porcelain, that each client's trust was a mirror to my own stupidity? I forced a smile. Just tired. The lie curdled on my tongue. Outside, February sleet blurred the bodega's neon sign across the street, Café Bustelo bleeding red into puddles. That lounge was 5 blocks away. Had they laughed at my naivete between sips of Veuve Clicquot? Back home, David's suitcase sat by the door packed but unclaimed. He'd texted need space, though space now meant Chelsea sublets and hotel points. Our wedding photo watched from the mantel, Coney Island Ferris wheel behind us, my head tipped back mid-laugh, his hand possessive on my waist. I yanked open the fridge empty except for wilting kale and a half-eaten tiramisu from Giovanni's, our place, where he'd fed me cannoli off his fork saying, "Soulmates share desserts." The container hit the trash with a hollow thud. Midnight found me scrubbing salon sinks. Bleach fumes burned my throat. Clean, sharp, honest. In the alley below, a stray cat howled. I thought of David's colleague Amanda, with her sleek courtroom heels and honey blunt bob. Had she touched his wrist while arguing discovery motions? Laughed at his jokes over stale conference room coffee? My sponge scraped dry dye from stainless steel. This sink held evidence of others' transformations. Burgundy rinses, platinum lifts, gray roots conquered. Yet here I was, scrubbing until knuckles split raw, trying to bleach my own history from the grooves. Sleep didn't come, just ceiling cracks napping constellations above our king bed, his side cold as a mortuary slab. At 3 a.m., I dragged his pillow to the floor. Its memory foam still held his cedar cologne, the scent he wore to impress judges. Now it choked me. I stabbed the pillowcase with fabric scissors, filling the gash with clumps of hair swept from today's floor, Mrs. Gable's silver strands, teenage Mia's blue-tipped ends. All these discarded pieces of women I'd fixed. The pillow bled polyester stuffing like a gutted animal. Dawn crept in pale and tentative. In the salon's back room, I sorted clean towels. Fold, stack, repeat. The rhythm steadied my breath. Between terrycloth folds, I found a stray eyelash, long, dark hers. My thumb crushed it to dust. Outside, garbage trucks beeped, swallowing last night's trash. I imagined David's lies compacted beneath coffee grounds and cat litter hauled away to some Staten Island landfill. Mrs. Chen's foils glinted under processing lamps now, a crown of tinfoil hope. She patted my hand. "Whatever it is, it passes." The kindness undid me. Tears scalded but didn't fall. Not here. Not yet. Instead, I mixed developer, measuring ratios like a pharmacist, 20 vol, never 30. Precision was my anchor. Life might be chaos, but color theory never lied. Complementary hues. Contrast. Balance. I could rebuild from there, one strand at a time. David's razor still sat on the bathroom sink, a stupid, mundane betrayal. 3 blades, crested with his stubble. "I'll get it later," he'd said the morning he left. Later never came. I swept it into the trash with the back of my hand, the clatter against porcelain too satisfying. Outside, the G-train rattled the apartment windows. Brooklyn didn't pause for Heartbreak. At the salon, Mrs. Gable waited, her newly cropped silver hair already growing out wild. "Chloe, darling, I need more off the back." She tapped her neck. Like that French actress, Jeanne Moreau. My shears hesitated. Jean Moreau's look was defiance, a statement. Mrs. Gable's eyes held the same sharp glint. "You're doing it," she said, not unkindly. "Surviving." The blade slid through her hair, clean, decisive strokes. Snip, snip, like cutting cables from a sinking ship. Lunch break found me at the bodega. Carlos slid over my usual, ham on rye, extra pickles. "Heard from him?" he asked, polishing the counter. I shook my head, biting into sourdough so hard my jaw ached. David used to bring me cannoli here after double shifts. Carlos wiped espresso grounds into a gray pile. Men forget where home is, but home remembers. He nudged a free coffee toward me. Black, bitter, perfect. The afternoon bled into balayage and broken small talk. Teenage Mia chattered about her boyfriend's band while I painted honey streaks into her dark roots. "He wrote a song about my eyes," she sighed. Her phone buzzed, a string of heart emojis. My own phone stayed silent. David's last text glared up from the counter. "Need time to figure things out." Translation: "Time to see if she's worth blowing up our lives." On the walk home, I passed the Velvet Hour. Crimson awning, gold lettering peeling at the edges. Through the window, a bartender polished glasses, meticulous, unhurried. How many times had David sat there, spinning lies between sips of 12-year scotch? I crossed the street, heels clicking like a metronome against pavement. "Don't look, don't wonder, don't break," the apartment echoed. I filled the silence with NPR story about Antarctic researchers surviving winter darkness. "You find routines," a scientist said, voice crackling through static. "You measure the small wins." I measured mine, laundered towels stacked in perfect squares. Scissors sterilized. No tears shed today. But then, the gym bag, still slumped by the door where David abandoned it. Inside, his sweaty Mets jersey. A protein bar. And at the bottom, tangled like a accusation, her black lace camisole. Silk slithered through my fingers. Size small. Bergamot and jasmine still clinging to the threads. I didn't scream. Didn't throw it. Just carried it to the fire escape, our old smoking spot, back when we pretended cigarettes were a sometimes thing. Wind whipped off the East River, sharp as broken glass. Below, a couple argued in rapid-fire Spanish. "Otra vez, siempre es lo mismo." Again, always the same. A match hissed to life. I held the flame under the lace. Fire consumed it fast. A brief, blue-orange bloom. Ash fluttered down 3 stories onto a dumpster lid, like a funeral for what never should have touched our home. When the landline rang at 9 p.m., I knew only telemarketers or divorce lawyers called that relic. David's voice was whiskey thick. "Chloe, we should talk." Background noise, glasses clinking, jazz piano. The Velvet Hours soundtrack. I pictured his fingers drumming the bar top. The way he'd twist his wedding ring when lying. Talk? The word tasted like tin. About Chelsea sublets? Or hotel points? Silence. Then the wet click of ice in his glass. My grip tightened on the receiver. "Don't call again." Click. Midnight. I stood before our bedroom mirror, really looked. Purple smudges under hazel eyes. Faded bleach burn on my collarbone. Hair pulled into a fraying bun. When did I become someone's collateral damage? Scissors flashed in the dim light. Not the shears, my fabric scissors. Heavy, sharp, mine. One long snip sent dark waves tumbling past my shoulders. Another. Hair pooled at my feet like shadow. The woman in the mirror emerged, jawline sharper, neck exposed. Vulnerable. Alive. On the fire escape, wind bit my bare nape. I scattered the hair over the railing strands, catching on chain link, drifting toward the dark river. Let the harbor carry it away. Let it tangle with fishnets and ferry ropes. Mrs. Gable was right. Survival isn't pretty. It's a French crop in a Brooklyn bathroom. It's burning silk in the wind. It's learning to breathe through the burn. Rain lashed against the salon windows Monday morning, turning 7th Avenue into a river of taillights and broken umbrellas. My new haircut felt strange. A cool vulnerability against my neck where David's fingers used to rust. Mrs. Gable walked in, shaking her trench coat dry. "Mon Dieu, Chloe, the audacity." She kissed both my cheeks, European style. "This haircut screams I survived the Titanic." Her approval warmed the chill in my bones. Evelyn arrived next, her usual caramel latte replaced by 2 black coffees. She slid one across my station. "Carlos said you looked like you needed it." Her gaze lingered on my shorn hair. "Radical. I like it." We didn't mention David. Instead, she flipped through a bridal magazine, her engagement ring catching the fluorescent light. "Think beach waves for June." I nodded, running fingers through her honey blonde strands. This was my anchor transformation without betrayal. The morning rush blurred, a nervous bride-to-be, a teenager wanting magenta streaks, Mr. Petrovsky's stubborn ear tufts. My shears moved with renewed certainty. Snip, 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 each cut severing another ghostly thread to the past. When Javier cranked up Celia Cruz, I let myself sway to La Vida es un Carnaval. For 3 minutes, the ache dulled. Then the door chimed. David stood dripping in the doorway, holding a wilted bouquet of peonies. My favorite. The salon fell silent. Even Javier's blow-dryer stalled mid-roar. David's eyes darted to my hair, widening. "Chloe, can we talk?" "Outside?" Mrs. Gable's hand clamped over mine on the shears. "She's working," she announced, voice like chilled steel. I met his gaze, really met it. Saw the shadows under his eyes, the poorly knotted tie. The man who'd whispered forever on Coney Island now looked like a stranger who'd lost his wallet. "You're blocking Mrs. Henderson's highlight processing," I said evenly. "Please leave." He flinched. 5 minutes. "Your 5 minutes expired with the hotel points," Evelyn cut in, not looking up from her magazine. "The door's behind you, Dave." He left the peonies on the reception desk. They looked pathetic beside Carlos's bodega coffee cup. Still half full, still warm. I dumped the flowers into the trash bin marked hair waste only. During lunch, Carlos appeared with a paper bag. Special delivery. Inside, 2 cannoli from Giovanni's. "No, man," he said firmly, tapping the ricotta-filled pastry. "Just sugar therapy." The first bite crisp shell, sweet cream, bitter chocolate chips flooded my senses. David hadn't brought these since year 3 of our marriage. "Soulmates share desserts," he'd said. Now I devoured mine alone at the sink, watching rain cleanse the sidewalk. The afternoon brought an unexpected client, Mateo, Carlos's nephew. "The Arosa said you're a miracle worker," he grinned, shaking rain from his dark curls. "Got a job interview at Brooklyn Hospital." He needed a respectable trim. As my fingers combed through his thick hair, I noticed things. The calluses on his hands. "Electrician," Carlos said, the faded tattoo on his wrist, a hummingbird. How he asked about my day instead of monologuing. "Ever cut hair for a guy who panics when he sees scissors?" He joked when I turned the chair. "Only every groom before weddings," I quipped. His laugh was warm, no hidden tension. As the shears shaped his neckline, he caught my eye in the mirror. "You've got steady hands. Occupational hazard or superpower?" When I dusted talc on his neck, he didn't flinch. David always complained it tickled. Mateo just smiled. "Feels like victory." He paid in cash, leaving a tip that made me blink. "For the emergency cannoli fund," he winked. Walking home, I passed the velvet hour again. This time, I stopped, not to ache to see the peeling gold letters. The smudged windows, the bored hostess scrolling her phone. It was just a place, a backdrop for weak men and weaker choices. The apartment welcomed me with NPR's quiet murmur, Antarctic researchers reporting record ice melt. David's abandoned suitcase still lurked by the door. I dragged it to the curb in the downpour. Let the sanitation department deal with his ghosts. Upstairs, I opened windows despite the rain. Wind rushed in, smelling of wet pavement and distant river. For dinner, a single canolono sharing. The ricotta tasted like freedom. At midnight, I didn't count ceiling cracks. Instead, I sketched hair designs in my portfolio. Geometric undercuts, rose gold balayage, a daring asymmetric bob. My pencil flew, no trembling. When sleep came, it was dreamless. Deep? Mrs. Gable's words echoed at dawn, surviving. But this, the quiet, the cannoli, the steady hands, this felt like the beginning of more. The divorce papers arrived wrapped in cheap photocopies. David's signature, a jagged slash beneath irreconcilable differences. I signed at the salon's back sink, ballpoint scraping against stainless steel. No tears, just the drip of a leaky faucet marking time. Snip, snip, snip went my shears through Mrs. Henderson's split ends, each cut severing another legal tie. "Big news?" she asked, eyeing the envelope. "Just renewing my license," I lied, tucking grief beneath professionalism. The lie felt lighter now. Spring teased Brooklyn with cherry blossoms along 7th Avenue. I bought myself peonies from the Korean market. Plush, coral pink, defiantly alive. They sat on my station, outshining Evelyn's bridal magazines. "Somebody celebrating," Javier teased. I didn't correct him. Celebration was too bold. But the tight bud in my chest? That was relief. Mateo returned on Friday. No interview this time, just needed a reset. His curls had sprung back with vigor. "Hospital hired me," he announced, sliding into my chair, rewiring the pediatric ward. His grin was sunshine through storm clouds. As I draped the cape, his calloused hand brushed mine warm, solid, no wedding ring indentation. "Celebratory cut?" I asked, fingers combing through his dark waves. "Celebratory something." He met my eyes in the mirror. "Carlos mentioned Giovanni's cannoli are half off after 4. The invitation hung between us. David's ghost whispered too soon from the trash bin. My shears hovered. "I close at 5. His reflection smiled. "I'll wait." Mrs. Gable watched from her dryer throne. Clis carajou, she mouthed, tapping her wrist where our watch would be. Hurry up. I worked deliberately, tapering his nape, cleaning sideburns, dusting talc with a brush instead of my fingers. Professional distance. But when he stood, handing me a folded tip, his palm lingered. For the emergency cannoli fund, he said softly. The bill was crisp. $20. Hope in paper form. Giovanni smelled of espresso and burnt sugar. We took the corner booth, sticky vinyl, chipped formica. David and I had shared tiramisu here after closing on our apartment. Now, Matteo split a cannolo with his fork, pushing the ricotta-heavy half toward me. Electricians rule, always share the voltage. We talked about safe things, Carlos's bodega cat, the Mets losing streak, the horror of pediatric ward wiring. Kids stick gum in outlets, he groaned, like tiny anarchists. His laughter crinkled the corners of his eyes. No bergamot cologne, just soap and solder. Walking home, twilight softened the brownstones. At my stoop, he paused. Next time, I'll bring better flowers than peonies. You saw the trash cam? Carlos has surveillance-level gossip. His smile faded. He also said, you're tougher than subway rails. The divorce papers waited on my kitchen counter. I slid them into a drawer beside takeout menus. No urgency. David texted later, did you sign? His words buzzing like a trapped fly. I typed yes and blocked his number. The silence afterward was velvet. Saturday brought a walk-in client, Mateos Diarosa, her silver braid coiled like a crown. Mi sobrino talks non-stop about your hands, she declared, settling into my chair. Says you heal hair like a saint. Her shrewd eyes assessed me in the mirror. He's rewiring your heart too, eh? Heat climbed my neck. Just his hair, Claro, she winked. Hair is where the soul rebels. I undid her braid, decades of stories woven into each strand. As I massaged argan oil into her scalp, she hummed a Spanish lullaby. You remind me of my abuela, I admitted. She had hands that could calm hurricanes. Rosa caught my wrist. So do you, mija. That night, I dreamt of scissors, not cutting hair but splicing wires. Red to red, blue to blue. A hummingbird tattoo beating its wings against copper currents. Sunday morning, I found a brown paper bag at my door. Inside, a single cannolo and a potted succulent, tiny, resilient, roots coiled tight. No note, none needed. I placed it on the fire escape beside the empty space where lace had burned. Rain began to fall, washing soot from the grate. At the salon Monday, Mrs. Gable brought croissants. Well, she demanded, powdered sugar dusting her chin. Did the electrician spark? I tucked the succulent beside my peonies. Its leaves glowed jade green under salon lights. Wiring's in progress, I said, and for the first time in months, the smile reached my eyes. The scent of Giovanni's espresso lingered on my coat as I climbed the stairs to Matteo's loft. Rain blurred the navy yard windows into watercolor smudges, gray steel, and ghostly cranes. Just coffee, I'd promised myself, but the brass key on my ring finger felt heavier now. He met me at the door, welding mask pushed back, soot streaking his temple. Sorry for the chaos, he grinned, kicking aside a coil of copper wire. The space was a symphony of organized madness. Blueprints pinned over a mattress on the floor, conduit pipes snaking the ceiling, half-finished hummingbirds on every surface. No bergamot, just ozone, solder, and the warm yeast of rising dough. Tres leches experiment, he announced, pulling a lopsided cake from the oven. Abuela's recipe requires improvisation. We ate cross-legged on drop cloths. Sponge cake soaked in sweet milk collapsed onto my fingers. He leaned over, swiping the drip with his thumb, a jolt straight to dormant roots. David never cooked, I blurted. Matteo paused. His loss. He pointed to a dented photo frame, a woman with Matteo's eyes, holding a hummingbird feeder. Abuela believed burnt cakes taste best. Life's too short for a perfect batter. Rain drummed the skylight. I traced a weld scar on his forearm shiny pink against olive skin. Catskill souvenir? Worth it. He covered my hand with his, calluses rough against my palm. To light up the dark, he showed me his projects, a chandelier made of subway turnstile arms, a hummingbird mobile with wings from shattered mirrors. Salvage is my therapy, he admitted, sanding a twisted steel rose. Finding beauty in broken things. My gaze fell on a familiar glint. David's wedding band, half melted in a solder tray. Still repurposing ghosts. Patience, he winked. Some metals need more heat. Impriar murmured from a dusty radio. Antarctic researchers report unprecedented ice melt. David called yesterday, I confessed. Wind rattled the windows. Said I was, rebounding. Matteo's knuckle tilted my chin up. Do you feel like a rebound? The question hung, raw, real. David's love had been a gilded cage. This felt like open sky. I feel unwired, I whispered. His laugh was warm gravel. Good, means we're building something new. He handed me a soldering iron. Try, The torch hissed alive, blue flame trembling in my grip. "Steady," he murmured, guiding my elbow. Copper bloomed cherry red under the tip, a molten river swallowing David's ring. I shaped it into a feather-jagged, imperfect mine. "See?" His breath warmed my neck. "Broken things make the strongest art." Later, wrapped in Abuela's quilt, we watched headlights cut through rain on the river. His heartbeat thumped against my ear, a grounding rhythm. "Salon's lease is up next month," I said. Mrs. Kim offered me her old space. "It's derelict." Mateo's fingers stilled on my hair. "Where?" "2 blocks down. Used to be Kim's Cuts." He sat up, eyes alight. "I rewired that place years ago. Solid bones. Just needs. A miracle?" He pulled a blueprint from under the mattress. "A partner." Pencil lines redrew the space stations under arched windows, hummingbird sconces, a hydraulic chair center stage. "We'll make it a crown. We." The word echoed, warm as the soldering iron's glow. David's ghost hissed too fast, but the blueprint felt like a prayer. At dawn, rain softened to mist. I stood at the window, Mateo's jacket over my shoulders. Below, a garbage truck swallowed last night's trash, David's pleas, Amanda's bergamot, all compacted into history. He handed me coffee. Black, bitter, perfect. First steps, the scariest. I touched the feather cooling on his workbench. Metal, resilient. Let's go see our ruins. Rain blurred the hospital windows as I braided IVE tubing into a crown for little Amina. "Princess of Pediatrics," Mateo declared, securing the last sensor wire with tape. His hand brushed mine, lingering, warm as he recalibrated the monitor. The scent of antiseptic and his cedar soap mixed strangely with memories of bergamot. "Different," I reminded myself. "This is different. Story?" Amina whispered, tugging my smock. I spun a tale about a hummingbird who mended storm-shattered skies with needle-nose pliers. Mateo crouched beside her bed, twisting spare wires into a tiny bird. "For courage," he said, tucking it into her palm. His eyes met mine. "You too." Later, in the cafeteria, he split a dry turkey sandwich. David moved out, saw the truck. The news settled like sediment. Chelsea loft, Jersey, actually. He nudged his apple toward me. "Further from the velvet hour." I took a bitter bite, core included. At the salon, Evelyn waved her left-hand diamond, replaced by pale skin. Called it off. She slumped in my chair, strands of blonde sticking to tear-streaked cheeks. Caught him texting his yoga instructor. My comb froze. Another wreck. I mixed a deep burgundy glaze. "Let's burn the evidence," I said. She gripped my wrist. "Make me unrecognizable." Snip, snip, snip. The blonde fell like surrendered flags. As the dye processed, she whispered, "How'd you survive the aftershocks?" The ammonia burned my eyes. I stopped waiting for apologies. Mateo waited outside at closing, 2 cannoli in hand. Rain slicked his leather jacket. "Bad day?" Evelyn's earthquake. He opened his umbrella over us. "Giovanni's is closed." "Fire escape picnic?" My apartment still smelled of David's absence, dust, and unresolved anger. But Mateo didn't flinch. He spread napkins on the fire escape grating, rain drumming above. "Carlo says you're taking over Mrs. Kim's salon next month." I nearly dropped my canalo. Gossip travels faster than the G-train. "He's your unofficial press agent." His thumb wiped ricotta from my lip. "Say yes. I'll rewire the place for free." The touch sparked. A live wire. David's ghost hissed too fast from the shadows. I pulled back. "Why?" Mateo's gaze didn't waver. "Because your hands build cathedrals out of split ends." The rain softened. Across the alley, a light flickered. Mrs. Bass. Gable's window. She raised a wine glass in salute. "Sunday." David's lawyer called. "Finalize asset division." The brownstone. The salon chair he bought me. The savings account bled dry by work trips. I met him outside the courthouse, spring sun glaring off marble steps. He looked thinner. Amanda's influence or guilt? "Chloe." He reached for my elbow. I stepped aside. "Sign the papers, David." His pen scratched. Mine echoed. "No peonies this time. Just asphalt and exhaust." "Did you ever?" He began. My shears snicked in my bag. "Ever what?" "Regret trusting you?" "Every day." I turned toward the subway, not looking back. Mrs. Gable hosted Salon Liberation Night champagne in bleach bottles. Javier blasted salsa, swirling Evelyn in her new burgundy hair. "To scorched earth." Mrs. Gable toasted. "And the women who plant gardens in it?" Mateo arrived late, toolbox in hand. "Heard there's a rebellion." He knelt by my station, unscrewing the wobbly hydraulic base. His fingers worked deftly, replacing bolts, tightening joints. "Needed stability," he murmured, testing the chair's smooth swivel. Our eyes locked in the mirror. "We both do." Walking home, he stopped at my stoop. "The rewiring offer stands. For the new salon, Wind lifted my short hair. What's your rate? He traced the hummingbird on his wrist. Dinner. No cannoli. Alone, I opened the windows wide. Rain had washed the fire escape clean. No lace ash, no hair. Just the succulent Mateo brought now sprouting tiny new leaves. I placed the signed divorce papers on the grate. One match. Blue flame licked David Michael Ross into smoke. The ashes spiraled downward, joining wet pavement and discarded Metro cards. Gone. Mrs. Kim called at dawn. Keys are yours, Chloe. Start Monday. I touched the succulent's resilient leaves. Begin. Dawn painted the new salon's dusty windows in stripes of pale gold. Kim's cuts, the faded sign creaked in a wind. Inside, emptiness echoed, cracked linoleum, water-stained mirrors, the ghost of perm solution clinging to the walls. My footsteps sounded too loud. This wasn't transformation. It was excavation. Mrs. Gable arrived first, wielding a mop like a battle staff. Mon Dieu, the neglect. She thrust a bucket of pine-scented cleaner into my hands. Start scrubbing, I'll handle the spiders. Her presence was a lifeline. We worked in silence, bleach fumes rising like incense. By noon, the floors gleamed dull silver, revealing decades of scuff marks, testaments to other women's dreams. Mateo appeared at 3, toolbox slung over his shoulder. Heard the war zone needed reinforcements. He didn't mention David's finalized divorce papers burning last week. Didn't have to. His gaze swept the dangling wires above my future station, exposed copper veins snaking from the ceiling. Fire hazard, he declared, flicking a dead switch. Sparks fizzed. I pointed to the hydraulic chair abandoned in the corner, David's anniversary gift. That tool? Mateo knelled, testing its groan. Salvageable, needs new guts. His wrench clanked against metal. Like some people, we worked side by side. Javier brought speakers, Buena Vista Social Club drowning out demolition. I scraped wallpaper pink roses, peeling like old skin, while Mateo rewired circuits. His hands moved with electric certainty, stripping insulation, twisting copper, sealing connections. No hesitation. Tell me about the hummingbird, I asked, watching his tattoo flex with each turn of the screwdriver. He paused. Colibri, my abuelo's favorite, said they carry prayers. A wire sparked blue. Died rewiring a church in Quito. Cardiac arrest mid-hymn. He grounded the cable. I got this after. The chair hissed as he pumped new fluid into its cylinder. Rising smooth, steady, David called as I hauled trash bags to the curb. The lawyer said you burnt the papers. Wind whipped hair into my mouth. Got a problem? Just surprised. His voice was thin Amanda's bergamot perfume faint in the background. You never were dramatic. I watched Mateo through the window, testing my chair's swivel. People change, David. Silence. Then the wet click of his throat clearing. Are you happy? I finished. The word felt foreign. True. Working on it. I hung up, blocking the number permanently. The trash truck swallowed David's voice whole. At dusk, Mrs. Gable hung fairy lights, twinkling defiance against the gloom. Evelyn arrived with pizza, her burgundy hair vibrant under the makeshift glow. 2 fresh starts? She toasted, grease staining the divorce decree she'd shredded into confetti. Javier danced with a broom. Mateo flipped the master switch. Light blazed, clean white, alive chasing shadows into corners. My reflection appeared in the polished mirror, smudged sweatshirt, short hair sticking up, knuckles raw from scrubbing. But my eyes, they held a glint Mrs. Gable approved of. Magnifique, she whispered. Alone later, Mateo wiped grease from his hands. Chairs ready for its queen. I sat. The hydraulic sigh was silk against silence. Perfect balance. Your turn, he said, draping a cape over my shoulders. My hair's fine. Not for cutting. He produced clippers for testing my wiring job. His smile was a dare. Trust me? The buzz vibrated through my skull. Not David's hesitant touch. This was sure, steady pressure. Dark wisps fell like charred bridges. He shaped the nape higher, sharpening the line. Cool air kissed newly exposed skin. In the mirror, our reflections overlapped. His focus, my surrender. Not to him, to possibility. Done, he murmured, dusting talc. The scent was clean slate. We ate pizza on the floor, backs against my station. Rain tapped the windows. Opening day? He asked. Monday, need a sign? I pulled a sketch from my pocket, Chloe's crown. A hummingbird perched on the O. He traced the bird's wings. I'll weld the frame tomorrow. Walking home, he stopped at my stoop. Still wiring the pediatric ward. But after, he hesitated. Giovanni's has tiramisu on Wednesdays. Not cannoli? Too predictable. His thumb brushed the fresh shave at my nape, a jolt straight to dormant roots. Tiramisu means pick me up. The streetlight haloed his rain-damp curls. Yes, I thought. Yes. Upstairs, I placed the old salon key, David's relic, beside the succulent. Its new leaves unfurled toward the window, toward light. Opening day dawned brittle bright. Brooklyn frost glittered on the Chloe's crown sign. Mateo's hummingbird welded into the O, wings catching the early light. My breath fogged the glass door as I turned the key. Silence. Then the hum of freshly wired fluorescence. Steady, certain, mine. Mrs. Gable arrived first, swathed in faux fur. Darling, the sign. She pressed a velvet box into my palm. Inside, antique hairdressing shears, French steel gleaming like liquid mercury. My grandmother's. She survived 2 wars and a cheating husband. Her wink held centuries of wisdom. Consider them battle-tested. Evelyn followed, bearing a pot of coffee and panic. The florist cancelled. No orchids for Mrs. Astor's updo. Her burgundy hair quivered. Outside, snow flurries blurred 7th Avenue. I handed her the shears. Hold fees. Breathe. Dialed Carlos. Emergency. White flowers. Anything. By 10, the station mirrors reflected controlled chaos. Mrs. Astor scowled beneath her dryer as Javier sculpted an intricate chignon. The texture, Javier. It lacks je ne sais quoi. He rolled his eyes at me. Divorcees are worse than brides. The door chimed. Mateo, dusted with snowflakes, hauled a crate of white chrysanthemums. Carlos's bodega rescue. He says they're funeral flowers, but beggars can't blah blah. His voice trailed off as Evelyn threw her arms around him. Hero. I reached for the crate. Our fingers tangled on damp cardboard. You rewired, welded, and forested. Multitasking. Snow melted in his curls. Sign holding, winds picking up. We braced the ladder outside. Brooklyn wind knifed through my smock as I climbed, gripping the hummingbird's metal wings. Below, Mateo steadied the frame, his shoulder pressed to my calf. Left brackets loose. He shouted over traffic. I fumbled with frozen fingers. The wrench slipped. His hand closed over mine. Warm, calloused, steering the bolt home. Ground wires secure, he murmured, breath clouding between us. Back inside, Mrs. Astor's critique crescendoed. The orchids, Javier. Where's the drama? I snatched chrysanthemums from the crate. Snip, snip, snip. Removed petals. Dyed stems with gold spray paint. Assembled improbable blooms while Mateo watched, amused. Orchid imposters. Survival tactic. Javier tucked the last gilded chrysanthemum into Mrs. Astor's chignon. She preened, exquisite, like frost on champagne. Evelyn sagged against the sink, mouthing thank you. Quiet, fell post, lunch. Snow piled silently on fire escapes. Mateo lingered, rewiring a stubborn dryer. Got a gig upstate next week. 3 days. The news landed softly. Wong commute. He tested the dryer's roar. Yeah? Hesitated. Dinner before I go? Proper sit down, no fire escapes. David chose that moment to walk in. He stood dripping on the new linoleum, eyes scanning the hummingbird sign, the French shears, Mateo's toolbox opened by the dryer. Amanda's bergamot perfume clung to his scarf. Chloe. The word sounded foreign here. Heard about the salon. Came to congratulate. Mrs. Gable's dryer snapped off. Silence crackled. Mateo straightened, wiping grease from his hands. Help you? David ignored him, stepping toward my station. You cut your hair more. Snick. Mrs. Gable's antique shears opened in my palm, a silver gasp. Appointment only. His gaze flickered to Mateo. New handyman? No, I said softly. Knew everything. The bell chimed again, Tia Rosa, shaking snow from her shawl. Hola, familia? She kissed Mateo's cheek, then mine, eyeing David. Why, este fantasmita? This little ghost? David retreated. I'll go. Good, said Mrs. Gable, reactivating her dryer with violent finality. At closing, I locked the door, exhaling. Snow mounded against the curb where David's footsteps had vanished. Mateo touched my elbow. Dinner? Wednesday? Giovanni's has ossobuco. I traced the hummingbird on the door. Tiramisu after? Always. Alone, I swept gold chrysanthemum petals into a pile. They glimmered like shattered promises under the lights. Outside, the wind shook the sign, clang, clang, clang. But the hummingbird held fast. I placed Mrs. Gable's shears on their velvet stand. Battle-tested. Ready. Giovanni smelled of simmering tomatoes and burnt garlic, a comforting assault. I smoothed my dress, wool against tights, suddenly aware of every thread. Mateo stood by our booth, shrugging off his work jacket. Snowflakes melted in his dark curls. You made it, he said, relief warming his voice. The booth felt different without David's possessive arm draped over the back. Smaller, more intimate, Mateo nudged the breadbasket toward me. Carlos says you stress-bake sourdough when anxious. Is nothing sacred? I tore a crust. He tell you my middle name too? Rose, after your abuela's garden. His eyes held mine. And that you hate olives but pick them off pizza anyway. Osso buco arrived, veal shank glistening in gremolata, risotto creamy as moonlight. David always ordered for me. You'll love the branzino, Chloe. Mateo slid the dish between us. Share? Or separate plates? My knife hovered. Choice. Share. We talked through saffron-scented steam. Not David. Not wiring. Real things. The ache in his shoulders after rewiring a brownstone century-old fuse box. The way Mrs. Gable secretly fed stray cats behind the salon. My childhood fear of barber poles. They looked like candy cane prisons. Confession, he said, swirling Chianti. I booked the upstate gig to avoid your opening day. Bread turned to dust in my mouth. Why? Thought I'd jinx it. He traced the hummingbird on his wrist. My abuela said new beginnings need clean air. He pushed a marrow-filled bone toward my plate. But watching you handle Mrs. Astor's floral meltdown, that was worth the risk. Outside, snow-hushed Prince Street. He walked me home, our shoulders brushing with each step. At my stoop, he paused. Still hate tiramisu? David's ghost hissed too sweet, pretentious. I stepped closer. Depends who offers. His calloused hand cupped my cheek rough against winter-chilled skin, not demanding, asking. When his lips met mine, it wasn't sparks. It was warmth spreading like a circuit, finally closing. No bergamot, just snowflakes and the faint tang of solder. We pulled apart, breath clouding the space between us. Not a jinx, I whispered. His thumb caught a melting snowflake on my lip. Good. The apartment embraced me, silent but alive now. The succulent Mateo brought months ago had tripled in size. Tendrils stretching toward streetlight. I touched my lips. Still warm. David called at 3 a.m. blocked number. Chloe, it's bad. Amanda's voice shrilled in the background. Tell her it's over. His sob crackled. She took the Chelsea loft key. I'm at the Port Authority. I hung up, pulled the quilt over my head. No guilt, just quiet. Morning frost etched ferns on the salon window. Mrs. Gable inspected my face over espresso. Mon Dieu, you're glowing. And higher. Central heating, she snorted. Try again. Shetty. Evelyn arrived with boxes. Found these clearing my ex's crap. She lifted vintage hairdryer helmets. Chrome domes like 1950 spaceships. Art Deco tragedy or retro chic. Mateo walked in, toolbox in hand. Chic. His gaze found mine. Private current humming beneath fluorescent lights. Mount them above the stations. Rewire for ambiance, not function. We worked together, his ladder steady as I passed wires through ceiling tiles. Upstate job got postponed, he murmured, fingers brushing mine on a copper strand. Convenient. Blizzard. He grinned. Totally unpredictable. Tia Rosa arrived for her weekly blowout, clutching El Diario. Page 5, she ordered, tapping a gossip column. Local electrician spotted canoodling in Giovanni's. A blurry photo caught Mateo wiping sauce from my chin. Verdad? Mateo's ears reddened. Paparazzi lies, Chia. Rosa winked at me. My nephew blushes. Verdad. After closing, Mateo stayed to fix Mrs. Gable's temperamental dryer. I swept gold chrysanthemum petals, left over from Mrs. Astor's orchids, into a dustpan. Rosa's cutting out that column for her scrapbook, he groaned, testing wires. Scandalous. I held the dustpan steady. Will your abuela approve? He killed the power. Abuela would have baked you trislacious by now. Silence settled. The salon hummed, clean, wired, ours. He stepped close, smelling of ozone and effort. Giovanni's tomorrow? They make tiramisu on Thursdays. I touched the fresh stubble at his temple, so different from David's meticulous beard. Only if you promise not to feed me. Deal. His lips found my forehead. A grounding, a beginning. Walking home alone, snow crunched under boots. No David-shaped ghosts, just the memory of a kiss against falling snow and the electric certainty of a hummingbird's wings. The rhythm of the salon steadied me. Snip, 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 blow-dryer roar, Javier's off-key salsa humming. Mrs. Astor returned, this time demanding sunset ombre to match her new divorce settlement mood. Make it scream alimony, darling. I mixed coral and gold, the colors of a Brooklyn dawn. David's attempts thickened like summer humidity. First, roses delivered to the salon, blood red, thorny. Mrs. Gable intercepted them. Non, she declared, dumping them into a bleach bucket. Then handwritten letters. I see him with you in that gossip column. Does he know how you cry in your sleep? The words curled like burnt hair. I burned them in the back sink, watching ash swirl down the drain. Mateo noticed. Trouble? He rewired the neon open sign, replacing flickering tubes. Just ghosts. I handed him pliers. He tested the current steady blue glow. Ground the wires. They can't shock you then. Tia Rosa arrived with pastelitos. For the warriors, she announced, patting Mateo's cheek. She eyed David's latest letter's ashes in the sink. Fantasma persistente. Tell Carlos his cousin's a bouncer at the Velvet Hour. Her wink was a loaded gun. Friday brought a heatwave. Air conditioning groaned as I sculpted an asymmetric bob for a nervous bride. He wants kids immediately, she whispered, sweat beading her temples. But my med school loans, snip. I sharpened her jawline. Your crown? Your rules? She left standing taller, hair slicing the humidity like a blade. Mateo's upstate job finally called. 3 days rewiring a Catskills lodge, he said, packing tools. At the stoop, he hesitated. David still circling. I pressed Mrs. Gable's antique shears into his palm. Battle-tested, for luck. He folded my fingers back over them. Keep these. I fight with voltage. His kiss was brief sweat and sunscreen, a promise. Alone, the apartment simmered. David called again, blocked number, blocked words. I cranked NPR's Antarctic report, surviving 6-degree Celsius by focusing on micro-tasks. My task? Repotting Mateo's succulent. Its roots had cracked the ceramic wild, insistent, alive. Saturday night, the salon dark. Footsteps echoed in the alley, too heavy, too familiar. David's shadow filled the back door window. Chloe, open up, please. Bergamot bled through the keyhole. I gripped the shears. Leave. Just talk. That electrician, he's using you. His fist thumped glass. You're vulnerable. Headlights sliced the gloom. Carlos's delivery van lurched into the alley, radio blasting ranchera. He emerged, meat cleaver glinting under security lights. Problemas, jefe? David stumbled back. Carlos nodded to me through the glass safe. Sunday, Mrs. Gable hosted emergency brunch at her brownstone. Mimosas in bleach-stained tumblers. Time for artillery, she declared, sliding a brass key across the table. My niece's place in Montauk. Empty until Labor Day. Evelyn fanned herself with a color chart. Soft air fixes everything, Mateo called as seabirds screeched through the line. Lodge wiring's a nightmare. You okay? Wind whipped the phone. Better now. David came. Where? His voice sharpened, a live wire stripped bare. Carlos scared him off. Silence. Then the buzz of his grinder fierce, prolonged. I'm cutting the job short. I walked the beach at dusk. Atlantic waves erased footprints. Mine, David's, all the old paths. Salt crusted my shorn hair. Mrs. Gable's niece's cottage perched on dunes, white shingles, blue shutters, smelling of turpentine and unfinished canvases. On the porch, I sketched hair designs in wet sand, mermaid waves, tide pool blues, a hummingbird taking flight. The moon rose. My phone lit up, Mateo, face smeared with soot, standing before his truck. 4 hours, he texted. Behind him, the lodge glowed, every window blazing against the mountains. I photographed my sand hummingbird, wings outstretched toward the horizon. Sent it. His reply came fast, prayers delivered. Sleep took me deep. No David nightmares, just the hum of a rewired world. Midnight. The cottage groaned like an old ship wind whistling through salt-warped shutters, floorboards sighing under restless feet. I traced the moon's path across the floor, counting waves instead of ceiling cracks. 1, 2, Atlantic rhythm steadied the hum in my bones. Headlights cut through the dunes. Tires crunched on crushed shells. I met him on the porch steps, barefoot in pajamas, Mrs. Gable's shears gripped behind my back. Mateo emerged from the truck, smudged with soot, reeking of burnt insulation and pine resin. His eyes found mine, shadowed but alert. Carlos filled me in. The words rasped like sandpaper. Where is he? Gone? Wind whipped my thin sleeves. Ran when Carlos revved the cleaver. He mounted the steps, toolbox clanking. Up close, I saw the fatigue. The split knuckles, the singed collar. Should have been here. You lit up a mountain, I countered, showing his phone's photo. The Catskills lodge blazing against darkness like a defiant beacon. He touched the shears handle still hidden behind me. Kept your artillery ready, I see. Inside, I cleaned his wounds at the kitchen sink. Antiseptic on raw knuckles, iodine on a scrape along his jaw. He winced. Lodge owner tried dye wiring. Nearly fried us both. His calloused hand covered mine on the gauze. David won't come near you again. Carlos's cousin works the Velvet Hour's door now. Her territory. I dabbed iodine harder. Amanda's problem now. He laughed. A rough, weary sound. Karma's a live wire. I bandaged his hand, fingers lingering on the hummingbird tattoo. Why drive 4 hours? The blizzard's coming. Abuela's rule. His thumb brushed my wrist. When prayers are delivered, you thank the messenger. We ate cold pastelitos on the porch. Wind howled, hurling sand against the shingles. He pointed to my fading sand art hummingbird, half erased by tide. Should have carved it deeper. Tides don't care about permanence. I do. The words hung between us, heavier than the storm. At 2 a.m., the power died, blizzard claiming the coast. We huddled by the fireplace, sparks painting shadows on unfinished canvases. He rewired an old hurricane lamp, copper gleaming in firelight. Ceylon sign held. Wind hit 50 tonight. I fed driftwood to the flames. Hummingbirds welded steel. Like you. His knee brushed mine. Not an accident. The storm raged, a fury of snow and salt. We talked in the flickering dark. Mrs. Gable's 3 divorces. Tactical retreats, he grinned. My fear of deep water, Brooklyn kid logic oceans, are giant sewers. His abuela's ghost stories about colibris guiding lost souls home. After abuela died, he said, staring into embers, a hummingbird tapped my window during a blackout. Coincidence, probably, or a prayer checking in. He looked at me then, really looked. Yeah, David called. Blocked number, unblocked desperation. Chloe, I'm at Coney Island. I muted the phone, said it's spinning on the floorboards. Mateo raised an eyebrow. Ghosts haunting the boardwalk. Just static. He pulled a wire from his toolbox, thin, copper bright. Make something? We wove bracelets by firelight, twisted strands coiled into hummingbirds, soldered with candle flame. His fingers guided mine, steadying the pliers. Like splicing hearts, he joked, sweat beading his temple. The metal cooled around my wrist. A tiny bird in flight. Dawn bled gray through the windows. Snow mounded against the doors. We shoveled a path to the truck, breath clouding the salted air. His hand gripped the shovel's wooden handle, mine covered his. Synchronized heaves into the drift. Back inside, he repacked his toolbox. Salon opens tomorrow. Mrs. Astor's roots won't wait. I touched his bracelet metal warm from my skin. Tiramisu tonight? He zipped the bag shut. First, we evict your ghost. Coney Island was deserted, snow swallowing the Ferris wheel, boardwalk buried under white dunes. Our wedding spot, a splintered bench facing frozen waves. David hunched there, shivering in a thin suit, bergamot long gone. Mateo stayed in the truck. Your battle, his nod said. David stood, snow crusting his hair. You came. I kept Mrs. Gable's shears hidden in my coat. Last time, speak. He gestured to the icy arcade. Remember? You won that stuffed bear. Bear's ashes are in a landfill, I cut in. Like your promises. His eyes flicked to Mateo's truck. He'll leave when he's bored. You're just convenient. Wind knifed off the Atlantic. I stepped closer. I used to think this place was magic. My boot scuffed frozen sand. But it's just wood and rust. Like us. I turned away. He didn't follow. At the truck, Mateo cranked the heat. Okay. Snowflakes melted on my lashes. Now I'm okay. We drove back to Brooklyn in silence, his bracelet cold on my wrist. Outside the salon, Mrs. Gable swept snow from the hummingbird sign. It shone indestructible. Ground the wires, Mateo murmured, squeezing my hand. No more shocks. Brooklyn thawed in a slow drip, icicles weeping from fire escapes, slush rivers churning gray at curbs. The salon hummed with post-blizzard energy, Javier defreezing ski hat hair, Evelyn mixing recession red for a laid-off banker, Mrs. Gable debating eyebrow tints with forensic intensity. My shears moved through Mrs. Chen's new growth. Snip, snip, snip. Each cut precise, unhurried. Grounded. Mateo's bracelet warmed against my wrist as he rewired the dryer station. Sign took 0 damage, he reported, testing a socket. Hummingbird's indestructible. His knuckles, freshly scabbed from the Catskills dye disaster, brushed my apron. Now. The door chimed. A woman entered early 40s, cashmere coat frayed at cuffs, eyes scanning the room like a trapped bird. Chloe? Her voice cracked. David's? Amanda. Silence fell. Javier's blow-dryer choked mid-whir. She clutched a paper bag. He's gone. Took my savings, the Chelsea loft key, left this. She extended the bag. Inside, bergamot cologne, half empty. Said it reminded him of you. Mrs. Gable stepped forward, blocking Amanda's path to my station. Sortes. Amanda flinched but held her ground. I didn't know about the lies, the other women, until Carlos's cousin showed me security tapes. The velvet hour wasn't his first hobby. She placed the cologne bottle on the reception desk. The scent unfurled, sickly sweet, cloying. I thought you should know it wasn't just us. There were more. Mateo's screwdriver clattered. He moved beside me, a silent bulwark. I picked up the bottle. Cool glass. Familiar poison. David's voice whispered, Your neck, Chloe, always bergamot at sunset. I unscrewed the cap, poured it slowly into the hair waste only bin. The liquid soaked into clipped strands. Mrs. Chen's black, Evelyn's burgundy, Javier's magenta sweepings. Thank you, I said, dropping the empty bottle into Amanda's bag. Now leave, she hesitated. Aren't you angry? Outside, a garbage truck compacted last night's snow. Crunch, grind, hiss. Anger's a perm solution, I said, turning back to Mrs. Chen's unfinished layers. It fries the roots. My shears resumed their rhythm, snip, 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 steady as a heartbeat. Amanda left. The scent lingered, but Evelyn spritzed citrus disinfectant. Air's cleaner already, she declared. After lunch, Tia Rosa arrived with café con leche. She eyed Mateo's bracelet on my wrist. Oye, the colibri found its nest. She pressed a velvet pouch into my hand. Inside, 2 tiny gold earrings, hummingbirds in flight. Abuelas, for your corazón fuerte. Mateo's thumb brushed my earlobe as he helped clasp them. Abuela would have adopted you on sight. David texted from an unknown number. Amanda lied. She's jealous. I blocked it, then handed the phone to Mateo. Recycle this? He dismantled it with practice pliers, SIM card snapping, battery pried loose. Salvageable parts? Landfill. We walked home at dusk, slush seeping into boots. At Giovanni's, he paused. Tiramisu's off menu tonight. Emergency? He pulled a key from his pocket. New, brass, unmarked. My place. I make mean tres leches. The loft overlooked the Navy Yard exposed brick, conduit pipe snaking ceilings, a welding station glowing in one corner. No bergamot, just ozone, coffee grounds, and the yeasty tang of rising dough. Abuela's recipe, he said, whisking egg whites. Requires focus. I traced fresh weld scars on his forearm, shiny pink against olive skin. Catskill souvenir? Worth it. He caught my hand, pressing it over the scar to light up the dark. Tres leches soaked sponge cake, sweet and dense. We ate cross-legged on the floor, NPR murmuring Antarctic updates, ice shells calving, revealing new land. His finger swiped cream from my chin. Salons humming, ready for the next storm. I licked the cream off his thumb. Salt, metal, promise, rewired and grounded. Later, his welding torch hissed blue in the dark, repairing a fractured hummingbird sculpture. Sparks rained like falling stars. I sketched hair designs on his blueprint paper, geometric braids woven with copper wire, lightning bolt undercuts. At midnight, wind rattled the windows. He draped a work jacket over my shoulders, thick canvas smelling of solder and safety. Stay? Through the glass, Brooklyn glittered, a circuit board of resilience. Mrs. Gable's words echoed, gardens grow in scorched earth. I touched the hummingbirds at my ears, gold wings catching torchlight. Ground me, I said. His kiss tasted of milk and possibility. Summer humidity draped Brooklyn like a wet towel. The salon's act fought valiantly as I sectioned Mrs. Henderson's hair, neon blue extensions for her granddaughter's rave. Make me less grandma, more glam punk, she giggled. Rhinestone studs winking at her temples. Snip, snip, snip. My shears felt like extensions of my hands now, steady, certain. Mateo's hummingbird bracelet warmed against my wrist as he installed ceiling fans. Heat waves frying the grid. He grunted, balancing on a ladder. Easel bias time. Below, Tia Rosa directed his movements like a conductor. Izquierda. Et cuidado con los cables. The challenge arrived at noon. Lady Astor's daughter, Genevieve. 19, Tear Street mascara, clutching fashion magazine tear sheets. I want this, she demanded, stabbing a photo of a shaved geometric pattern dyed venom green. Before Yale orientation? Mrs. Gable inhaled sharply. Chave, that requires a master, Genevieve finished, chin lifted. Can you? I studied the design, razor-sharp lines intersecting at the nape, color bleeding like acid rain. David's ghost whispered too risky, but the hummingbirds at my ears caught the light. Sit. As I draped the cape, Genevieve flinched. Dad left Mom last week for his yoga instructor. Her laugh was brittle. I'm his midlife crisis accessory, apparently. Snick. The clippers buzzed to life. Accessories are temporary, I said, guiding the blade along her occipital bone. Crowns are forever. Mateo killed the ladder's wobble with a shim. Steady? Always. Genevieve's dark hair fell in soft drifts. Javier passed me the bleach industrial strength. Nerve-wracking sigh? Just chemistry, I said, mixing developer. Precision, control. The bleach processed under plastic. Genevieve scrolled through her father's Instagram New Beginnings photos with Amanda at Montauk. Pathetic, she muttered. Tia Rosa slapped her phone down. Mira, she pointed to Mateo resoldering, a fan wire sparks arcing blue. See how he fixes what's broken? Sin llorar, no crying. I rinsed the bleach. Genevieve's scalp emerged pale as moonstone. Now, the dye neon green, toxic bright. I painted each geometric plane like a muralist, edges sharp enough to cut glass. David texted, heard about Genevieve. Don't ruin her hair. I blocked the number mid-stroke. Mateo's fan whirred to life, cool air kissing my neck. Ground wire secured, he murmured, wiping sweat. No more shocks. Genevieve stared at her reflection, a warrior's crest in electric green. It's perfect, her voice cracked. How'd you know? I dusted talc along her nape. Rebellion needs structure. After closing, heat lightning pulsed over the Navy Yard. Mateo's loft smelled of solder and tres leches. He welded a new sculpture hummingbirds mid-dive, wings forged from salvaged subway tokens. For the salon's entry, he said, mask lifted. Sparks died on concrete. I traced the tokens dated 2008, the year David promised forever on the cyclone. Scrap metal, repurposed history. He handed me the torch. Try, the flame hissed. Copper glowed cherry red. I guided it along a wing's edge, heat radiating through gloves. David's voice faded beneath the roar. You'll burn yourself. You're not strong enough. Metal flowed like liquid sunset. Good, Matteo murmured, steadying my elbow. Now, lift. The wing took shape, jagged, imperfect, alive. We ate tres leches on the fire escape. Storm winds whipped the East River into whitecaps. Genevieve's mom booked an appointment, I said, licking condensed milk off my thumb. Once a divorce bob. Matteo's laugh rumbled. Business booming, lightning flashed. Rain slammed down, violent, cathartic. We hauled his sculptures inside, dripping onto blueprints. His hand brushed my lower back, warm through damp cotton. Stay, storm's bad. Thunder shook the windows. Not like David's empty king bed. Here, the world felt rewired safe in its fury. I unclasped Mrs. Gable's shears from my belt. For luck, I said, placing them beside his welding mask. His fingers intertwined with mine solder. Calloused, grounding. No luck needed. Rain lashed the glass. We didn't sleep, talked until dawn. His abuela's superstitions about storm welding, metal remembers lightning. My childhood fear of thunder, abuela said it was angels rearranging furniture. At sunrise, the storm cleared. Brooklyn glistened, washed clean. Genevieve texted a selfie, green geometric crown against Yale's Gothic arches. Dad blocked me, best haircut ever. Matteo pressed a new key into my palm brass hummingbird engraved. For here, any time. I slid it onto my ring finger temporary placeholder. Not a promise, a choice. Mrs. Gable's voice echoed as I unlocked the salon. Gardens grow in scorched earth. Today, we'd plant. August heat shimmered off the pavement like a mirage. Inside the salon, the new ceiling fan stirred damp air as I blended sunset hues from Mrs. Astor copper to crimson, the colors of a phoenix rising. Make it scream alimony victory, she declared, tapping Vogue's cover. Her reflection glowed beneath the foil crown. David's final letter arrived via courier-thick parchment, his law firm's crest embossed in gold. Cease contact with Genevieve, it demanded. Parental alienation claims pending. Mrs. Gable snatched it mid-air. Quelle absurdité, she fit it to the shredder, its mechanical teeth gnashing like a rabid animal. Across the room, Matteo welded the last hummingbird sculpture to the entry arch, subway tokens melting into wings under his torch. Sparks rained onto drop cloths. Ground wires secure, he called over the hiss. This bird's nesting permanent. Tia Rosa arrived with iced horchata, eyeing the sculpture. Los Espiritus approve, she announced, hanging dream catchers woven with copper wire from its beak. For good currents. The afternoon brought a walk-in, Genevieve's yoga instructor stepmother, Amanda. Sun-streaked hair, Lululemon perfection, eyes darting like a cornered rabbit. I need less her, she whispered, clutching dyed ends that reeked of desperation and bergamot. Javier's comb froze mid-section. Dios mío, the audacity. Chair 3, I said, draping a fresh cape. Amanda flinched as I lifted her hair roots dark as guilt. David's draining me dry. The lawsuits, her phone buzzed, blocked number. She silenced it. He's using you to punish me. Snick. My shears opened. This isn't about him. I pointed to Matteo's sculpture tokens from 2008 glinting. See that wing? From the year he promised me forever. The blades slid through her extensions. Some metals corrode. Others get reforged. Hair fell bleached, brittle, dead weight. I mixed a cool ash blonde, painting her roots with surgical precision. Look forward, not backward, Tia Rosa called from her pedicure. El pasado es polvo. As the dye processed, Amanda stared at her hands. No wedding ring, only a pale stripe. Genevieve showed me your green masterpiece. It's fearless. Fear's a luxury, I said, capping the developer. I ran out. David called the salon landline a last gasp. She's manipulating you. Static distorted his scream. Genevieve's mine. Matteo yanked the cord from the wall. Line's dead. He handed me the severed plug. Like his argument. I dropped it into Amanda's purse. Souvenir. At closing, we admired the installed sculpture hummingbirds diving toward the door, wings catching Brooklyn's golden hour light. Mrs. Gable pressed chilled rosé into our hands. I vote haute résilience. Matteo's palm settled at the small of my back, warm through thin cotton. Lofts rewired. Added ack. His thumb traced my spine. Move in. The question hung between us, thick as the humidity. David's ghost whispered too fast from the shredded parchment pile, but the keys on my ring finger felt heavier. Truer. I touched a hummingbird wing, smooth, solid, real. What about Abuela's rules? She'd say, a home's circuits need balancing. He nodded to my salon key hanging beside his. Live wire meets ground wire. We ate churros on the fire escape, sugar crystals melting on our tongues. Below, kids chased ice cream trucks through hydrant spray. David filed for shared custody, I said, cinnamon bittersweet. Genevieve's 18 in 3 months. Mateo's knuckle brushed sugar from my lip. Then he's chasing ghosts. Night fell. We walked to his loft, fingers laced, no space, no hesitation. The new act hummed as he showed me my corner, drafting table by the window, mannequin heads for styling experiments, a potted succulent twice the size of mine. Roots need room, he said softly. I unpacked my single suitcase, Mrs. Mesh's. Gable's shears, Abuela's earrings, Genevieve's venom green hair sample pinned to a mood board. David's wedding band clinked at the bottom, forgotten, tarnished. I dropped it into Mateo's solder can. Repurpose this. He fished it out, torch flaring. Gold-pooled, molten, and malleable. With tweezers, he stretched it into a filament, thin as a prayer, and welded it to a hummingbird's wingtip. Now it serves something beautiful. We lay awake as city lights painted the ceiling. His heartbeat thumped against my ear, steady, grounding. Salon's yours, I whispered. This is ours. His lips grazed my forehead. Welcome home, Chloe Rose. Outside, a real hummingbird tapped the window, once, twice before vanishing into the Brooklyn dark. September's first chill kissed Brooklyn as I sculpted Mrs. Astor's alimony victory hair into liquid copper waves. The salon drummed Javier's blow-dryer, roaring over salsa beats, Evelyn mixing recession red for a Wall Street refugee, the ceiling fans stirring air scented with ambition and argan oil. My shears felt lighter now, snip, 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 each cut severing invisible chains. David's last assault arrived via process server, a subpoena for undue influence over Genevieve, paper clause demanding testimony. Mrs. Gable intercepted it at the door, her faux fur collar bristling. Incroyable, she fed it to the shredder with a pastry fork. His desperation reeks worse than perm solution. Across the room, Mateo adjusted the hummingbird sculpture's dream catchers, copper wires humming in the draft. A real hummingbird hovered outside the window, iridescent throat flashing, before darting toward the navy yard. Abuela Scout, he murmured, catching my eye. Tia Rosa arrived with empanadas, eyeing the subpoena scraps. Abogados? Fantasmas. Tell the judge Genevieve's 18 next month. She slapped a newspaper on my station, Yale freshman's viral hair sparks, self-expression over parental permission, debate. Genevieve's geometric green crown glared from the front page. The landline rang, unknown number. I answered on speaker. Chloe? David's voice crackled, thin as old tape. The custody hearing. Mateo unplugged the phone. Dead air. I dropped the cord into the hair waste bin. Like his case. At lunch, Genevieve burst in, combat boots pounding linoleum. Dad's lawyer folded. She thrust her phone, a settlement offer, full emancipation upon 18th birthday. No testimony needed. Her venom green roots peeked through new black growth. Redo my crown? For the victory march. Snick. My shears opened. What's the vibe, warrior queen? With lightning bolts. As the bleach processed, she scrolled through David's latest new beginnings post-Amanda hiking Machu Picchu alone. He's already stalking a spiritual healer in Sedona. Her laugh was sharp, clean. Some men just corrode. I painted silver lightning bolts along her undercut liquid metal against dark canvas. Mateo passed me solder wire for authenticity. We pressed thin strands into the dye, sealing rebellion with chemistry. Mrs. Astor watched, her copper mane shimmering. David always underestimated your artistry, Chloe. Called it playing with hair. Snip. I sharpened Genevieve's nape line. Some men mistake fire for decoration. Closing time brought rain, needle sharp, washing sugar grit from sidewalks. Mateo secured the salon's awning as I balanced the register. His hand settled on my lower back. A warm constant. Lofts rewired the bedroom lights. Dimmers installed. David's ghost whispered to domestic. I leaned into Mateo's touch. Prove it, home. The word still sparked. His loft welcomed us. Welding station cool. Blueprints pinned over our bed. Abuela's lace altar cloth draped over my drafting table. I traced a fresh weld on the hummingbird mobile above the sink. David's ring filament gleaming beside subway tokens. He called today, I admitted. Mateo stilled. And I hung up before Chloe. He unclasped Mrs. Gable's shears from my belt. Placed them beside Abuela's photo. Battle relics. Then pulled me toward the dimmer switch. Watch. Darkness fell. He clicked the dial. Once, twice. Soft amber light bloomed, then deepened to dusk, gold, then starlight blue. Mood lighting, he grinned. For brainstorming. We slow danced to NPR's Antarctic report. Glacial calving reveals ancient rock formations, bare feet on concrete. His palm pressed between my shoulder blades, grounding the old tremors. David filed bankruptcy, he murmured against my temple. Chelsea loft foreclosed. Rain blurred the windows. No sorrow, just quiet acknowledgement. Like hearing a storm pass while sheltered. I woke at 3 a.m. to torchlight. Mateo belted at his station, a new sculpture taking shape. 2 hummingbirds sharing a single current, wings interlocked. Couldn't sleep, he said, mask lifted. Sparks haloed his curls. I handed him a solder rod. Collaborate? We worked in wordless sync, my hands guiding the flame along wing curves, his steadying the base. Copper flowed like liquid sunset. David's ring filament melted into the shared current, a thin vein of gold connecting them. Dawn bled honey gold over the navy yard. The finished sculpture glowed on the windowsill hummingbirds hovering mid-flight, forever chasing light. Genevieve texted, courthouse steps in 1 hour. Moral support? We arrived as mist rose off the East River. David stood alone in a rumpled suit, clutching emancipation papers. Genevieve signed with a silver pen, her lightning bolts glinting. He stepped toward me. Chloe. Mateo's arm slid around my waist. She's spoken. David's gaze flickered to my left hand. Mateo's key on my ring finger, hummingbird gleaming. Something fractured behind his eyes. Not anger, not regret. The hollow snap of a fuse blowing. He turned without a word, shoulders slumped, and vanished into the subway's mouth. Genevieve hugged me, her green crown pressed to my cheek. Thank you, for the art, and the armor. Walking back, Mateo laced his fingers through mine. Ground wire secure, he murmured. No more ghosts. Above us, a real hummingbird zipped through traffic, a flash of iridescence against Brooklyn steel, delivering prayers. October air bit sharp as my shears when Mrs. Astor demanded iced platinum for her Hamptons fundraiser. The salon vibrated, Javier's reggaeton battling blow dryers, the scent of bleach and ambition thick as fog. My fingers wove foils through her champagne blonde hair, each fold precise. Grounded. The door chimed. A silhouette backlit by Brooklyn noon familiar curve of shoulders, lavender perfume cutting through ammonia. Mom. Surprise. Her voice too bright, eyes scanning the hummingbird sculpture. Mateo's toolbox, my shorn hair. Your sister's wedding is next week, Chloe. You haven't RSVP'd. I slid down my spine. David had charmed Mom at that last Thanksgiving, pouring her Chardonnay, praising her timeless elegance while slipping Amanda texts under the table. Cha Rosa materialized with Cafe Cubano. Bienvenida, Mrs. Rose. Meet the miracle worker. She thrust Mateo forward, grease smudging his cheek. This is the electrician? Mom's smile strained. David mentioned instability. Mateo wiped his hand on jeans before offering it. Circuitry stable now, ma'am. His thumb brushed my lower back. A live wire's hum. I booked a lunch break. Giovanni's felt smaller with Mom dissecting her salad. David called me. He's devastated you blocked him. Outside, garbage trucks compacted last night's regrets. Crunch, grind, hiss. He's devastated his credit tanked, I corrected, stabbing a tomato. How's Aunt Carol's Shih Tzu? Mom's fork clinked. Don't deflect. He said you're living with some tradesman. Mateo, after 10 months. It took Daddy years to cheat? I finished. Her flinch was vintage crystal. Mateo rewired my salon, my life, my trust. She sipped Pinot Grigio, rebalance bruise, mija. Back at the salon, Genevieve waited pink buzz cut now grown into a faded sunset. Yale's exhausting. Need fire, she declared, slamming a photo of molten lava red layers. As I mixed dye crimson core, orange tips, Mom hovered. Such drastic colors scare clients, Chloe. Snips, snip, snip. I carved shattered glass layers. My chair, my rules. Genevieve grinned at Mom. She turned my dad's midlife crisis into art. Best revenge. Mom retreated to Mrs. Gable's station. Elle est trop radicale, she whispered. Mrs. Gable's razor paused mid-sweep. Radical saved her. Chérie. Unlike your Pinot Grigio. Closing time. Rain slicked the streets. Mom followed me to Mateo's loft, heels clicking like a countdown. Inside, her gaze snagged on the welding station. Blueprints pinned over our bed. David's wedding band reforged into hummingbird wings. You kept souvenirs? Repurposed. Mateo emerged from the kitchen, apron dusted with flour. Zeus leches for dessert? Abuela's recipe. Mom eyed the batter bowl. David never cooked. David never welded either. I touched a hummingbird's wing. Smooth, solid, mine. Over dinner, ossobuco, shared plate, Mom thawed. Genevieve's hair, it's extraordinary. Mateo served tres leches, cream dripping like liquid courage. Chloe turns damage into crowns. Rain lashed the windows. Mom's walls cracked. Your father, he begged for chances too. I stilled. She'd never admitted the affairs. Grandma's funeral, she whispered. I found hotel receipts in his jacket. Her finger traced condensation on her glass. I stayed for you girls. But the silence, it froze me. Outside, a real hummingbird tapped the glass. Once, twice, seeking shelter. Mateo rose. I'll find sugar water. Alone, Mom gripped my hand, cold, trembling. I saw David's destruction, still pushed you toward him. Because her throat worked. If you made her work, maybe I hadn't wasted 30 years. The confession hung, raw, ugly, real. Mateo returned, feeding the hummingbird through a cracked window. It sipped, wings blurring, then zipped into storm. Mom watched it vanish. You didn't freeze. Later, as she slept on our sofa, Mateo held me in the dim blue glow. You okay? NPR murmured. Antarctic microbes thrive in cracked ice. I pressed into his heartbeat. Steady, sure. Thawing hurts. His lips graced my temple. But the blooms, at dawn, Mom admired Genevieve's finished hair, molten layers framing her face like a phoenix. Stunning, she breathed, then hugged me stiffly. Wear the jade dress to the wedding. It matches your resilience. Her Uber pulled away. Mateo slid his key off my ring finger, replaced it with a new band, copper woven with gold filament. No rush, just a stronger circuit. Mrs. Gable arrived with croissants. Elors? I showed her the ring. Her smirk was victory. Envin, grounded and lit. The morning of Lila's wedding dawned crisp as folded linen. Backstage at the Botanical Garden, chaos reigned. Corsets laced too tight, a toddler smearing chocolate on bridesmaid silk, my sister pale as gardenia petals. He's late, she whispered, clutching her stomach. He being her fiancé Ben, whose pre-wedding fishing trip had overrun. Breathe, I ordered, guiding her to my styling chair. Outside, autumn maples blazed crimson nature's own recession red. I unpinned Lila's veil, fingers combing through her nervous sweat-dampened hair. Then once drove 3 hours because you craved mango sticky rice. He'll be here. Mom hovered, jade dress zipped tight over old resentments. David would have handled the vendors by now. The name hung like rotten fruit. Snick. My shears opened, not in threat, but ceremony. David handled nothing but his ego. I sectioned Lila's hair, weaving strands into a crown braid threaded with copper wire. Mateo's contribution. Ben's handling his priorities. You handle stillness. Lila's phone buzzed, Ben's location shared from a bait shop 10 miles away. Truck broke down, she groaned. Dia, Rosa barged in, hauling Carlos's bodega cooler. Calma. She distributed café con leche spiked with rum. Men fix engines. Women fix atmosfera. So, she winked at me, dangling dream catchers from potted ferns. 4 good currents. I worked swiftly, braiding resilience into each plate. The copper wire glinted, subtle as whispered promises. Mom watched, her reflection softening in the mirror. You learned this from him. Mateo taught me conductivity, I said, securing the last pin. Energy flows where attention goes. A commotion erupted outside, Ben's mud-splattered truck screeching to a halt. He burst in, smelling of seaweed and diesel, still in waiters. Tide was high, then the alternator. Lila launched herself at him, copper-braided crown askew. You're here. I handed Ben bolt cutters for his waiter straps. Salvage operation, I quipped. Mateo arrived as the string quartet tuned up clean shirt over work jeans, toolbox discreetly stashed behind hydrangeas. He kissed my temple, his copper ring cool against my skin. Traffic was a circuit overload. You rewired it? Persuaded a cop with Carlos's pastelitos. The ceremony unfolded beneath a maple's fiery canopy. Lila glided toward Ben, her hair catching sunlight copper threads like captured lightning. Mom wept silently into a handkerchief. Not for David's absence. For the braid's intricate beauty proof that broken things could mend stronger. During vows, a hummingbird zipped between guests, iridescent throat flashing before perching on Mateo's shoulder. Tia Rosa crossed herself. Abuela bendice, David calls during the reception. Mom handed me her phone, eyes steely. He's demanding my +1 seat. I put him on speaker. Cello music swelled behind us. Chloe, put Leela on. Ben's family owes me. Mateo plucked the phone away. Mr. Ross, your seat's been repurposed. He held it toward the hummingbird, now sipping champagne from a spoon. A tiny chirp echoed. Click. We danced under fairy lights. Mateo's hand settled at the small of my back, familiar, grounding. Saw Mom talking to Tia Rosa. They were, laughing. Scarier than David's subpoenas, I joked, resting my head on his shoulder. Later, by the cake table, Mom touched my ring. He made this from salvaged wire and David's wedding band. Her breath hitched. Then a genuine smile. Poetic justice tastes sweeter than fondant. Fireworks burst over the garden, gold chrysanthemums in the sky. Lila tossed her bouquet. It arced toward me, a comet of ivory roses. I stepped aside. It landed in Evelyn's arms, her burgundy hair shimmering, divorce decree finally signed that morning. New beginnings, she crowed, waving it like a torch. Mateo pulled me close as sparks rained down. You dodged tradition. Made my own, I said, pressing Mrs. Gable's shears into his palm, a silent surrender of old armor. At midnight, we drove back to Brooklyn. His toolbox rattled beside my styling kit companions in creation. I traced the hummingbird on his wrist. Abuela would have loved Lila's braid. He laced our fingers over the gearshift. She loved it through you. The loft welcomed us. Blueprints rustling, welding station cool. I unpinned my hair, letting the short waves fall free. No crown needed. NPR murmured from the bedroom. Antarctic ice reveals fossilized ferns, proof of forests where glaciers now stand. Mateo turned the dimmer to starlight blue. Forests under ice, he mused, pulling me close. Life persists, I whispered. His kiss tasted of champagne and homecoming. Outside, a real hummingbird tapped the window. Once, twice, bearing witness. November winds rattled the hummingbird sculpture as I blended espresso balayage for a hedge fund analyst seeking less spreadsheet, more soul. The salon frummed Javier's blow dryer roaring over Arctic monkeys, the scent of coffee beans and ammonia sharp in the chilled air. Snip, snip, snip. My shears carved shattered layers into her blunt bob, each slice severing corporate conformity. Mateo's key warmed against my copper ring as he repaired the neon O-in crown flickering since last night's storm. Loose filament, he called from the ladder, solder smoke curling like incense. Tia Rosa watched, dangling a new dream catcher woven with subway tokens. Para abundancia, she declared, hooking it to the hummingbird's beak. The cold snap bit deeper. At the loft, we huddled under Abuela's quilt, NPR detailing Antarctic ice cores. Trapped air bubbles reveal ancient climates. Mateo traced the scar on my palm left by David's shattered champagne flute years ago. Still aches? Only when I forget it's a trophy, I said, pressing his solder burn on his wrist, a mirrored history. David's spinal email arrived at midnight. Subject line, urgent. Bankruptcy filings attached. A plea. Genevieve's trust fund is all I have left. I forwarded it to her without opening. Her reply flashed, already donated it to electricians' apprenticeships. Enjoy Sedona. Morning frost-etched ferns on the salon window. Mrs. Gable arrived bearing pain au chocolat. David's in Arizona, she announced, powdered sugar dusting her smirk. Spiritual healer dumped in for a yoga goat farmer. Laughter died as a courier delivered a thick envelope, Kim's Cuts LC, final liquidation notice. The old salon's debts, buried in David's name, had surfaced like permafrost. $18K in back rent, I read aloud, numbness spreading. He signed the lease. Mateo snatched the papers. Predatory clause tenant responsible indefinitely. His knuckles whitened. I'll fight it. How? The word cracked. David's poison still seeped through cracks. I walked the Brooklyn Bridge at dusk, wind knifing through my coat. Below, the East River churned gray, relentless. Crunch, grind, hiss went a barge swallowing debris. David's voice echoed, "You'll drown without me." At the midpoint, a familiar silhouette leaned on the railing. Genevieve, her lightning bolts grown out to soft pink fuzz. Mom told me, she yelled over traffic. "Class, action time." She handed me a flash drive. His offshore accounts, hidden in spiritual retreat invoices. Back at the loft, Mateo scrolled through files, dozens of women drained by consultation fees. "He's a parasite," Genevieve spat. "Sue him into bedrock." I stared at the hummingbird mobile, David's ring filament glinting. Lawsuits are his oxygen. Mateo closed the laptop, then cut the wire. We gathered at Carlos's bodega, Evelyn with her lawyer ex's contacts, Javier with his cousin's pie firm, Mrs. Gable with a checkbook fat from alimony vengeance. Tia Rosa lit a candle beside the register. Well, volant de justicia. 2 days later, we mailed a packet to every name on Genevieve's list. Evidence, legal aid resources, a hairpin taped to each envelope. Your crown, your power. David called as snow began to fall. "You ruined me." Static swallowed his shriek. That money was mine. I held the phone to the window. A real hummingbird tapped the glass tap 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 sharp as gavel strikes. Click. The liquidation notice came again, this time stamped void. Mrs. Gable toasted with bleach-stained mugs. Asa de fa de gloriis? That night, Mateo welded in the dark torch, hissing, sparks painting the loft in fleeting gold. I sketched at his drafting table, a new salon logo hummingbird mid-flight, trailing copper wire. Found something, he said, killing the torch. In his palm lay David's final liquidation threat folded into a paper airplane. He launched it toward the solder bin. It spiraled, nosediving into ash. We slow danced to NPR's Ice Core report. Methane bubbles from 100,000-year-old ferns. His lips brushed my temple. Roots survive deeper freezes. At dawn, I stood before the salon mirror. Frost blurred 7th Avenue outside. Inside, warmth, light, the steady hum of healing. Mateo's reflection appeared behind me, calloused hands resting on my shoulders. Ground wires secure, he murmured. I covered his hands with mine, scars aligned, currents joined. No more shocks, only light. December's first snow-hushed Brooklyn overnight, thick, forgiving blankets muffling garbage trucks and car horns. Inside the salon, steam rose from peppermint-soaked towels as I sculpted an elder client's silver waves into a Snow Queen chignon. The air hummed with contentment. Javier's low salsa playlist, the snick-snick of Mrs. Gable's embroidery scissors. She'd taken up textile therapy, the citrus ozone scent of peace. Mateo arrived mid-morning, snow-dusting his work jacket. He placed a small velvet box beside my shears. No fanfare, just steady eye contact. For later, he murmured before rewiring Mrs. Astor's malfunctioning massage chair. Tia Rosa Pete, crossing herself. Anillo de compromiso. Mrs. Astor craned her neck. Darling, is it? An earring back up, I lied smoothly, tucking the box into my apron. David's ghost whispered too fast, but the lie felt flimsy against the warmth spreading from my ribs. Outside, snowplows grumbled down 7th Avenue. Genevieve FaceTimed from Yale, pink hair now faded to rose quartz. Dad's in Sedona, living in a yurt. Says he's vibrating higher. She rolled her eyes. Translation, mooching off a crystal healer. Snip, snip, snip. I trimmed a stray wisp from Mrs. Chen's updo. Vibrations require energy. He'll short-circuit soon. At lunch, Mateo guided me to the fire escape. Snow piled on a hummingbird sculpture's wings like sugar frosting. He opened the velvet box. No diamond. Instead, a copper band embedded with gold filament shaped like interlocking feathers. Salvaged from the loft's original wiring, he said. Abuela's locket pearl is the clasp. The pearl, tiny, luminous, winked in the weak winter light. David's solitaire had been cold, flawless, choking. This glowed with history, with heat. Ground wire upgrade? I teased, voice thick. He slid the ring onto my finger. A perfect fit. Permanent connection. Snowflakes caught in his lashes. I kissed him, slow, deep tasting of peppermint and solder. Below, Carlos waved from his bodega step, thumbs up. David chose that moment to call. The salon landline shrilled, relentless. Mrs. Gable yanked the cord. Ghosts take copper, she declared, feeding the wire into her shredder. The afternoon bloomed with clients seeking holiday renewal. A young mother, dark circles under her eyes, whispered of chemo while I shaved her head. Like yours, she said, touching my nape. But softer. I massaged argan oil into her scalp, my new ring gleaming against her skin. Crowns come in all forms, I murmured. She left with a crimson cashmere beanie, Mrs. Gable's gift, and shoulders squared. At closing, Mateo hung mistletoe from the hummingbird sculpture. Abuela's tradition, he grinned, kissing me under subway token wings. We walked home through the white silence, our breaths mingling in frosty clouds. The loft welcomed us, welding station dark. Blueprints tidied, NPR murmuring about Antarctic moss surviving sub-zero dark. Life finds a way, the scientist said. I placed the velvet box on Abuela's altar cloth beside her photo. Thank you, I whispered to her smiling eyes. Mateo stirred hot cocoa on the stove. Real chocolate, cinnamon, a dash of cayenne. Spicy enough to melt glaciers, he winked. We drank by the window, watching snow transform Brooklyn's grit into something magical. My phone buzzed. A photo from Mom, Dad holding her jade-draped shoulders at Leela's holiday party. He apologized, she texted. We're trying, I showed Mateo. Miracles or manipulation? He touched the pearl on my ring. Some wires need resoldering. Later, in the starlight dimmer glow, he traced the old scar on my palm. No more tremors. Ground wire held, I agreed, lacing our fingers. I dreamed of Antarctica, not ice, but copper ferns unfurling under a relentless sun, roots deep in thawing soil. Dawn broke, clear and piercingly cold. At the salon, Mrs. Gable presented a gift. Her antique shears framed in shadow box, displayed beside the reception desk. Pour memoire, she said. Retired weapons deserve honor. The first client arrived, a groom-to-be, palms sweating. She wants vintage Hollywood waves, he fretted. What if I faint? Snip, snip, snip. I sectioned his fiancé's hair. Breathe. Love's sturdier than you think. Outside, the snow glittered. Mateo's ring warmed on my finger, a live current humming beneath the skin. No more ghosts. Only light, only forward. Christmas Eve snow softened Brooklyn into a silent sonnet. Inside Chloe's crown, fairy lights glimmered on copper hummingbirds as I swept the last clipped strands. Embers of transformation swept into the new year. The air hummed with beeswax polish and contentment. Javier's salsa playlist had given way to Vince Guaraldi's piano. Mrs. Gable embroidered resilience onto a cushion for my chair. Mateo hung the final dream catcher, woven with subway tokens and abuela's pearls, above the door. Circuit complete, he declared, testing the twinkle lights. Their glow caught the feather-patterned ring on my finger. Permanent connection. The bell chimed. Mom stood haloed in snowfall, holding Grandma's recipe box. "Lila sent coquito," she announced, unpacking spiced coconut bottles beside Tia Rosa's pastelitos. Her gaze lingered on Mateo's hand resting on my lower back. "He's steady. Like Brooklyn Bridge cables," I agreed. We gathered around the hydraulic chair. Evelyn, Javier, Carlos, Genevieve, home from Yale, hair now icy platinum, Mrs. Astor, Tia Rosa, Mrs. Gable. Even Amina, her ivy tubing crown replaced by chemo-grown peach fuzz, beamed from her father's shoulders. "Speech," Javier called, popping coquito cork. I lifted my glass. To discarded strands. Foil clippings shimmered in the waste bin. To severed wires. David's liquidation notice, ashes framed under glass. To every woman who trusted this chair. My voice thickened. Mrs. Gable squeezed my shoulder. Mateo stepped forward, toolbox open. Inside, nestled in solder coils, Abuela's pearl-clasped ring. "To new circuits," he said, sliding it onto my finger beside the copper band. Twin hummingbirds, ding-dong, silence. David stood in the doorway, snow melting into his threadbare coat. Sedona's sun had etched lines deeper than grief around his eyes. He held wilted grocery store poinsettias. "Chloe, just Merry Christmas." The salon stilled, blow dryers hushed, scissors frozen. Mateo moved first, blocking David's path to my chair. Appointment only. David's gaze snagged on my stacked rings, the framed resilience cushion, Genevieve's defiant platinum crop. "Genevieve, honey," she stepped forward, chin lifted. "My trust fund trains electricians now." "Goodbye, Dad." Mrs. Gable plucked the poinsettias from his hands. Non-recyclable. She dumped them into the hair waste only bin. David flinched as the door shut behind him, a soft, final click. Outside, a real hummingbird zipped past the window, a flash of iridescence against falling snow, before vanishing into the indigo twilight. Rares delivered, we feasted on pastelitos and coquito. Mom braided Amina's wispy hair with copper thread. "Like Tia Chloe's magic," the girl whispered. At midnight, Mateo and I walked home through hushed streets. Our loft glowed, welding station dark, blueprints filed away, NPR murmuring. Antarctic moss blooms after 1 year of ice. He opened Grandma's recipe box. Inside, beside faded cards for flan and arroz con palo, lay a new one. Mom's handwriting, Chloe's Trois Leches, feeds a resilient heart. We baked in the starlight-dimmed kitchen. His thumb swiped sweetened milk from my wrist, a touch that sparked without burning. "Solstice tomorrow," he murmured. "Longest night." "Then more light," I said, pressing Tres Leches layers together. David called as dawn blushed over the Navy Yard. I answered on speaker while frosting the cake. "Chloe," static swallowed his voice. Wind howled, Sedona desert or his emptiness. "I'm lost." I spread coconut flakes like fresh snow. "GPS exists, David." Mateo leaned close to the phone. "Try coordinates 40.7128 degrees N, 74.060 degrees W, New York City. Lots of salvage shops. Rebuild yourself." Silence. Then the hollow dial tone, a fuse blowing at last. We took the cake to the salon. Snow-laced sunlight streamed through the windows, gilding the dream catchers, setting the copper hummingbirds ablaze. Mrs. Gable had left a gift on my station, my retired shears, framed with a note. "Pass these when ready." I placed a slice of Tres Leches beside them. Sweetness earned. Mateo turned the sign to open. The first client entered. A young woman, fingers twisting a faded wedding band. "Need a fresh start," she whispered. I gestured to the chair. "Your crown awaits." Snip, snip, snip. The shears felt like wings in my hand, cutting clean, light.